So welcome to another Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to share with everyone some of my favorite lower priced CGC 9.8s that I have. And you know, I really like to buy those sort of secondary key issues. You know, certainly not like an origin or first appearance, but secondary key issue. I find with those issues, you know, the pride of ownership is just as cool, especially if you have a really big nostalgic connection to them, like I do a lot of these issues. And on the CGC census, a lot of times there's maybe 100 or 200 of these compared to a key issue where, you know, there's 600, 700, 800, sometimes even thousands of them in the CGC 9.8. So I think if, you know, some of these covers and secondary key issues that maybe you like out there, I, you know, would totally recommend to, you know, go grab those issues. Personally, I always recommend CGC 9.8s for 80s and 90s books. But yeah, again, a lot of these secondary key issues are less money than obviously first appearances and origins, but I think just as cool. And when you look on the CGC census, sometimes there's less copies, which is a bit of a bonus. And I'm not saying, you know, these are going to be better than a lot of the first appearances out there, but you know, if you're on a budget but you still want to do CGC 9.8s, then I think this video could be for you. So in this video I will focus on just 80s and 90s books essentially, usually like I normally do here. I know obviously there could be some 9.8s in the 70s and everything, but sticking to 80s and 90s basically in this video, and I want to keep the price under 200 because yeah, this video will be all about sort of just some underappreciated issues from my collection that you know, were less than $200 but still I think are great investment grade books. So we'll get right to it here, and the first book we'll take out here, I got quite a few books out here so they're just all stashed up here, but I got Wolverine number 155 as one of my picks. Now Wolverine 155, you can get this for a pretty decent price. You know, there's not too many on the CGC census, so just really quickly looking at it, there's 117 9.8s on the CGC census of these, and yeah, most of them that are graded are CGC 9.8, so you'll see that in the ratio, 63.5% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8s, and that just basically means when someone's getting this graded, it's, you know, they've had it stashed away, and almost more than half of them are CGC 9.8s. So it's a very well kept issue. Not a, you know, a first run key issue, I would say. I say that this is kind of a secondary key issue with Deadpool appearing with Wolverine in these issues. And, you know, obviously this being a Hulk 340 homage, and the first one was Wolverine with Hulk. So this one's kind of a bit of the passing of the torch with Deadpool and Wolverine. I think this is a really cool issue. It's still one of those issues that you can grab again for, you know, I grabbed this one for 175 Canadian, so that's going to put it at like, you know, maybe 130, 140 American. And I think that's, you know, that was a buy it now. I hadn't really saw this issue too much until I saw this particular book, and it was in Canada as well, so I just kind of jumped on it. You could possibly grab this for maybe 20, 30 bucks cheaper, around that $100 level. But for me, I ended up paying about 130. But I think this one's got a lot of potential as a Hulk 340 homage, and you know, as that issue continues to build in popularity, and Hulk and Wolverine are obviously the kind of the biggest thing in comics right now. I think this will kind of ride on the coattails of that. And you know, if you really like this issue, you know, keep an eye out, be patient. There's only 117 out there in the CGC 9.8. So if you're patient, I think you could probably grab this one for around 100 bucks. If not, those buy it nows are probably looking a bit closer to 150. But Wolverine 155, love this Rob Liefeld cover too, one of my more favorite Rob Liefeld covers. Hulk 340 homage, can't go wrong with a book like this. Again, and if you're more patient, you can probably get a better price, so keep that in mind. With a lot of these books too, like most of the key issues we talk about, there's like 600, 700, 800 of them, but you'll notice with most of these books, there's only about 100 of each, sometimes even less. Depending on the book, but we'll get into some of the issues here. Second one, Batman 366. And, you know, this is really one of my favorite 80s Batman issues, especially when you take into the price. Like, relatively, this is probably my favorite Batman issue. Yeah, these in general, you can sometimes find some deals on these. At times they kind of pop up out of nowhere, and a lot of times those auctions are from sellers that, you know, aren't really CGCing a lot of stuff, not doing a lot of business, but they're just collectors, and every now and then one of these will pop up in the CGC 9.8. But this one is pretty tough to find. In this issue, you get Jason Todd first becoming Robin, essentially. Also, yeah, an awesome Walt Simonson cover. This is one of my favorite Joker covers, certainly of this era. And just when you look at Joker himself there with the kind of dually wielding handguns, I think is really cool. This issue too was quite a lot more expensive than some of the other Batman 366s, because this is the newsstand version, not the direct version. And I do have a direct version in the CGC 9.8, but since I brought out a bunch of issues, I didn't bring it. But let's just look on the CGC census really quick here. So for Batman 366, there's 139 of these in the CGC 9.8, and 30.5% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8s. So pretty, I would say, average ratio for this, 1983, this book being in, pretty average ratio. But to only have 139 of these is quite low for an issue like this. Again, kind of a secondary key issue where Jason Todd first becomes Robin. To have 139 of these, another example of an issue from 1983 where I always talk about Amazing Spider-Man and comparing Batman. Amazing Spider-Man, 238, First Hobgoblin. That book, there's about 300, I believe, in the CGC 9.8 compared to 139 of these. Now the ratio is a lot lower on that Amazing Spider-Man, but that book is about $1,000 US in the CGC 9.8. So this book, you can find a direct version of these for a little under $200 American. So I bought my direct CGC 9.8 on an auction that was kind of just popped up out of nowhere, so it was a pretty decent deal, and that I got that one for 200 Canadian. So that's looking about 150, 160 American. Is that going to be probably the rock bottom price for this issue? This one being in the newsstand a little bit more, but yeah, you're looking anywhere from, I say, like 160 to maybe a little bit over 200. If you just want it right now for buy it now, they can even get to like 250 to 300. So Batman 366 though, classic Joker cover, one of my favorite Batman issues, and if you can find that one for like 160, I think that's a really good deal. Next one we got here is a picture I posted on Twitter the other day of a Spawn Batman crossover. And I really like this issue as just kind of an underfollowed, underappreciated issue. And, obviously Spawn Batman in one comic, which is cool. But you also got Todd McFarlane and Frank Miller teaming up on this comic. So it's, it's not just like a Spawn and Todd McFarlane are like stealing doing a homage of Batman The Dark Knight Returns. They're also bringing in Frank Miller on this comic too, which I think is awesome. To have Frank Miller do the story, Todd doing the art. One of the few times that Todd does Batman too, so that's another reason why this is really cool. This is the one that you can have for a decent price too. I purchased mine for about $150, and it was just a buy it now. I think it was a little bit less than that. I believe it was like 150, 160 Canadian. So yeah, I was even looking at maybe 120 American. And if you do find one of these kind of pop up out of nowhere in the CGC 9.8, there is a good chance to get a really good deal on this book as well. And again, all these books are kind of focusing today on keeping the price under $200 easily. So this book here is a good example of that. I would say around $100 you can grab one of these if you're lucky. In a sort of buy it now price, you're looking at $130, sort of similar to what I paid. I didn't sort of wait for a buy it now. An auction. I just saw buy it now and kind of grabbed it. And in general, I kind of do that more often with issues that aren't as well known, because a lot of times you'll have a buy it now up there for say $150 as an example, and you know, I could wait around for a year for an auction to come up to get it for 115 maybe, but a lot of times at that point I'm just like, I want it now, I'll pay the 150. So that's kind of what I did with the Spawn Batman. So next comic is one I really like. It's Detective 525, and yeah, so this is definitely the coolest Killer Croc cover. I sort of a good comparison of this issue is to Amazing Spider-Man 316, which is that first cool Venom cover. This is basically the first cool Killer Croc cover. So you know, and basically all the I think, you know, very similarly comparable to that Amazing Spider-Man 316 Venom cover. But this book a lot cheaper, and there's a lot less in the CGC 9.8 for this book. Now, a cool story about this book is I purchased this online as a raw copy, and it was a super high grade raw copy that I purchased, paid pretty top coin for it, I would say, for an issue like this. But sent it to CGC, and I got a CGC 9.8. And what's even cooler is looking at the CGC census for this one. There are only 32 CGC 9.8s for this book. 32, that's it. So one of those 32, I got CGC, which I thought I was pretty pumped about that when I saw that there was only 32. Looking at the CGC ratio on this, 34.4% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8s. And I'd say that's a fair to sort of normal ratio for, you know, a Batman comic of the 80s here. This one being in 1983. But a really cool Killer Croc cover. If you love Killer Croc, I think this is an issue you probably got to have. You know, obviously 357 is his first appearance. I think this is probably kind of the second issue that you might want to have if you're a really big Killer Croc fan. And yeah, in general, you know, you see this one, if you get really lucky, you can get it in the low $100 in an auction. But a lot of times, being that there's only 32 out there, you only see these on Buy It Nows. And yeah, in general, you're looking at about $150 to $200 in a Buy It Now for an issue like this. And yeah, basically, you know, I would say this is kind of a secondary detective issue, secondary key issue. Definitely not a first key, no first appearance or anything like that, no origin. But probably the hands down the coolest Killer Croc cover. And yeah, if you can get something like this for, you know, around 150 bucks, I think that's a great little investment grade book. Only 31 on the CGC census, almost can't go wrong. And one other one here, this is my last sort of the 5, and I got some kind of bonus picks here, is Wolverine number 8. And Wolverine number 8, obviously you're kind of riding the coattails of Hulk and Wolverine and their team up. Obviously, Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine, has just exploded and blown up. So you're sort of riding the coattails of that. But, you know, out of this Wolverine series, personally, I prefer these kind of secondary issues. So you got Wolverine number 8 and Wolverine 155, I just showed you here with the Deadpool. You could go for Wolverine number 1, which is very similarly priced to this issue and this issue here. You know, that's the first patch as Wolverine. You know, personally, I kind of like these secondary issues a little bit better. You know, if you're looking for kind of early first Wolverine type appearances, I would just stick to X-Men comics. And then, you know, when Wolverine as Patch comes in, it's not, to me, you know, not the coolest number 1 cover or anything, and Wolverine as Patch, it's not Logan, so personally, I kind of like the secondary issues from the Wolverine series, like this one, and the Deadpool Wolverine 155 I just showed you. But Wolverine number 8, another cool thing about this is that it has a really cool back cover pinup of Wolverine by Rob Liefeld. And yeah, just a really cool perspective on this pinup. I really like this one out of all the pinups from the Wolverine series that they did during this time. And so yeah, you get a really cool Rob Liefeld pinup. Just looking really quick on the CGC census for this one, there's 301 of these in the CGC 9.8. So a little bit, this is the most popular book up here. And 42.1% of all graded copies are 9.8s. So not super rare, quite popular, pretty easy to find in the super high grade. But yeah, I did a video before about how I think this issue, because Hulk and Wolverine are becoming so iconic, and Hulk 181 is just continually going up in price. I think this is a good issue to, right now it's about $150. Sometimes you get a little less, sometimes a little more. I saw one the other week there, it went for $130 US. This one I think I paid $160 US, so you're looking in that general price. But I think over time this one has a chance to get up to like kind of that $250 range, where I know like Amazing Spider-Man 298 usually sells for like $275, $280. Even that Venom cover, Amazing Spider-Man 316, about $275, $280. I think this could sort of slot in right under that over time at around $250. And hopefully by then those books would have went up in price a little bit too. But yeah, I think right now you can grab it for about $150, and yeah, to me I really think this one has a chance to kind of gain sort of key issue status rather than secondary key issue status. And first key issues usually they get up to that sort of $230 to $250 range, selling on auctions. So I think this has a chance to get there over the next 5-10 years. So Wolverine number 8, Ryan the Hulk Wolverine team up crossover coattails. So those are my 5 main picks from my collection that I think are books that are really good deals, books under $200, and books that I think they'll certainly hold their value now, but I think they got a good chance to kind of keep going up in price, and in their own way, not first appearance or origin wise, but in their own way they are kind of classic comics, all of them. So yeah, I do really like this kind of part of the market, kind of the secondary key issue market, where you can grab CGC 9.8s for like less than $200, but really, really cool books. So I do have some honorable mentions. I'll bring this one up first because I just brought the book out. Amazing Spider-Man 431, this is the Cosmic Carnage appearance, and super cool Cosmic Carnage cover. And right now you're sort of in between the Venom movies, so not too much hype regarding the symbiotes right now, but that's not going to be, not going to have a low hype for long. So I would recommend, if you're on a budget, like kind of like how this video is about, under $200, this book, Amazing Spider-Man 431, and Amazing Spider-Man 410, which is the Web of Carnage. I think those 2 issues are really cool, popular Carnage issues that, right now, since we are in between those 2 Venom movies, there's not very much hype, so you could go after some Carnage issues right now. And maybe if you're a bit of a short-term guy, you could even buy some now and sell them for 25% more than what you bought them for once the Carnage 2 or Venom 2 movie comes out with Carnage in it. That could be a really good strategy. Yeah, for 431, the Cosmic Carnage that I just showed you, for that one you're looking at about $150, $160-ish, whereas Amazing Spider-Man 410, the Web of Carnage, that's about, I've seen that go for $110. $100, $110, $120. Maybe if you're paying up in a buy it now, that's getting up to $150. Whereas this one getting up to $200 in the buy it now, a little bit more expensive, about $50 more expensive. Some other honorable mentions, if you're really on a budget but still want some good investment grade books. Uncanny X-Men number 256, which is the first new Psylocke, Jim Lee cover art and Mandarin appearance in that one as well. I think that's a really cool cover, and you get a first appearance of new Psylocke, which, with these X-Men movies coming up, you never know what's going to happen with that character, so that's a bit of a wild card, and I saw one go just the other day on an auction for about $70 in the CGC 9.8 for a first new Psylocke. I think that's a pretty great deal. Another one from Uncanny X-Men of that era is the first Bishop in 282. I think that's a good one to still go after, and with Bishop on the cover, and it's his first appearance, kind of has just a couple pages, but since he's on the cover, that's sort of known as his main first appearance. So you could go for that one, 282, a little bit more expensive than the new Psylocke by like $20. It's maybe hitting about $100 in an auction. And yeah, last honorable mention here, so we got Uncanny X-Men, you got those Carnages from Amazing Spider-Man. And last one here will be Batman 404. Could have easily brought it out, but I thought, you know, Batman 366 maybe works a little bit better as an investment grade book. But Batman 404 is so cool, retelling the origin of Batman and Commissioner Gordon. And it's the first modern appearance of Catwoman too. That issue, if you find it at a good deal, is like 110, 120 bucks on auction. Maybe like around 120, 130 more. Yeah, even right now in Canada, there's a pretty decent one in a 9.8 new case for 175 Canadian dollars, which is going to put it at about maybe 140, and that's a buy it now. So yeah, even if you wanted to buy it now, you could probably get one for about 140. If you wanted to wait for an auction, 120-ish is about the price for Batman 404. And yeah, really cool Batman issue. I love that issue, and it's one that I'm looking for. I really want one in the newsstand version. I have one in a direct edition, and I'll probably buy another. That's one I do want to accumulate. I only have one, and that's one I do want to get maybe 2 or 3 of those in the CGC 9.8. Okay, but yeah, really excited today because, again, I really like this sort of niche of the market, the comic book market, the CGC 9.8 market. You know, books under $200 that aren't key issues. They're not the obvious key issues, but if you do a little digging, you know, like, you know, in Wolverine, you do a little digging, go down to issue 155, you get, wow, like an amazing Deadpool Hulk 340 homage this is from 2000, year 2002. And yeah, I find a lot of times too there's some gems in that sort of comic book recession era of, like, you know, 1998 to like 2002-ish. So yeah, if you do a little more digging and you look at those secondary issues and check out the covers, maybe you love them, how they look and everything, and I'm like that. I see those secondary issues and really like some of the covers, and again, on the CGC census, a lot of times there's only a couple hundred copies of these, maybe even less, whereas with key issues there's always like 300, 400, 500, 600 copies, so you're even getting a more rare book. But yeah, again, I love this part of the comic book market. Don't have to spend as much money just to get just as cool books, and yeah, I mean, good evidence of that for me. A Batman 366 is basically my favorite book, one of my favorite books of all time. Certainly when you take into account price, I think Batman 366 is my favorite book of all time. So yeah, I really wanted to share with you some of my kind of cheaper CGC 9.8s, so, you know, anyone out there on a budget can still get some really, really cool books. And again, most of these books under 200 bucks, and yeah, just as cool as their kind of some of their key issues, super expensive counterparts. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, please join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8 here. And yeah, we're doing about 4 or 5 videos a week. We're about 2 months into the channel, and, you know, knocking on about 200 subscribers now. I think we're at about 180-ish. So need all the subscribers we can at this early time, so thanks for that if you could subscribe. But thank you very much for watching the video today, and I'll see you on the next video.